The roar of the crowd used to be my drug of choice. 5 years in the MMA circuit had given me everything I thought I wanted: respect in the ring, a decent paycheck, and Amanda, my beautiful wife of 3 years. That Friday night, I returned home early from training, planning to surprise her with takeout from her favorite Italian spot. Instead, I was the one surprised. Her phone lit up on the counter. A text from Jordan Hayes, my upcoming opponent. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." Before I dive into this story, where are you watching from? Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had your trust betrayed by someone you loved. I am Albert, a 32-year-old middleweight MMA fighter with a 14-3 record. My journey to the octagon began on the wrestling mats of Colorado State, where I was a 2-time conference champion. After graduation with no Olympic prospects in sight, I transitioned to mixed martial arts, drawn by the challenge and the paycheck. It was not an easy road, but over 8 years, I carved out a respectable name for myself. Home was a modest 3-bedroom ranch in the suburbs of Denver. Not flashy, but comfortable, with a basement gym I had slowly built up over the years. Every morning I would wake at 5, run 5 miles along the Cherry Creek Trail, then head to Mile High Fight Club for my main training session. Mike Donnelly had been my trainer since day one, a former lightweight contender with salt and pepper hair and calloused hands that told stories of thousands of wrapped fists. Mike was more than just a coach. He was the father figure I needed after losing my dad to cancer during my sophomore year of college. Technique beats power, but heart beats everything, Mike would say, pushing me through those final brutal rounds of sparring when my arms felt like concrete. I met Amanda at a charity gala for youth sports 4 years ago. The fight promotion had asked me to make an appearance, and there she was, volunteering at the silent auction table. Honey blonde hair, green eyes that crinkled when she laughed, and absolutely zero knowledge about fighting. She asked if I was one of the karate guys, and I was charmed by her innocence. We were married a year later. Small ceremony, just close friends and family at a mountain lodge in Breckenridge. I remembered how the sunlight caught in her hair as we said our vows, how certain I was that I had found my forever. My days followed a reliable rhythm. Up before dawn train until noon recovery, and film study in the afternoon, home for dinner by 6. Amanda had her career as a pharmaceutical sales rep, which meant occasional overnight trips, but flexible enough hours that our schedules aligned well. At least that is what I thought. Weekends were sacred. Saturday mornings we would hike one of the nearby trails, then catch an early dinner and a movie. Sundays were for meal prep and relaxation. Sometimes friends would come over to watch fights or football. We had built a good life, a solid foundation. The sacrifices came mostly from my end. The strict diet, the early nights, the social events missed due to training camps. Amanda was always supportive, at least on the surface. She would meal prep with me, come to my fights wearing my fight team shirt, and massage my shoulders after particularly grueling training days. Just 2 more years at this level, I would tell her. Then we can think about starting a family. That was the plan. Push for a title shot, make enough money to be comfortable, then ease into coaching while raising our kids. She had agreed, seemingly content with the timeline. 3 weeks ago, we had celebrated our 3rd anniversary at Barolo Grill. I splurged on a good bottle of wine, though I only had a single glass due to training. She wore the sapphire necklace I had gotten her, matching her eyes perfectly. Everything seemed normal. Perfect, even. Looking back, I should have noticed how she kept checking her phone, how her laugh seemed just a bit forced. There were other signs, too. Her phone suddenly had a new password. Weekend errands that took longer than they should. New workout clothes, though she rarely went to the gym. A fresh perfume I did not recognize. But I trusted her completely, never questioning, never doubting. The upcoming fight was the biggest of my career. A title elimination bout against Jordan Hayes, an undefeated prospect 10 years younger than me. The winner would face the champion next spring. I had been studying his fights obsessively, noting his tendency to drop his right hand. After throwing a hook, his preference for fighting off the back foot. This was my shot, likely my only shot at a title fight before age pushed me into the gatekeeper role. That Friday, Mike had let me out of training an hour early. "You are peaking at the right time," he said, slapping me on the back. "Rest up this weekend, then we dial it in for the final 2 weeks." I stopped at Panzano picking up Amanda's favorite truffle pasta and a tiramisu to share. The house was empty when I arrived, but her car was in the garage, so I assumed she was out for a run or at a neighbor's. I set the table with the good plates, lit a candle, and put her food in the oven to stay warm. That is when her phone chimed on the kitchen counter. I would never normally check her messages. That was not the kind of relationship we had. But the preview notification flashed on the screen and my eyes caught it automatically. From Jordan Hayes. Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. I stared at it, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. Jordan Hayes. My opponent. The man I would be locked in a cage with in 14 days. There had to be an explanation. Maybe she was organizing some kind of surprise with the fight promotion. Maybe it was a different Jordan Hayes. I picked up her phone. It was locked, but I knew her birthday would open it. It did not work. I tried our anniversary. Nothing. With shaking fingers, I tried one more. The date we met. The phone unlocked. The message thread with Jordan went back 2 months. Pictures. Meeting arrangements. Intimate details that burned into my brain like acid. Messages about me, about how bored she was with our routine, with my dedication to getting punched for a living, as she put it. And the worst part, plans to meet up after his victory over me. After you win, we won't have to sneak around anymore, she had written. He will be so focused on licking his wounds, he won't even notice. They had met at the after party following my last fight, where she had gone alone because I was getting stitches at the medical center. The betrayal was comprehensive, detailed in hundreds of messages, exchanged while I was training, sleeping, or sometimes just in the next room. I sat at the kitchen table, the food growing cold, for nearly 2 hours, before I heard her key in the lock. My mind had cycled through disbelief, rage, heartbreak, and finally settled into a cold, calculating clarity. "Hey, babe, something smells good," Amanda called, dropping her gym bag by the door. Her cheeks were flushed, hair pulled back in a ponytail. No signs of a workout, though. Fresh makeup. A sundress I had not seen before. I sat still at the table, her unlocked phone placed precisely in front of the chair across from me. The candlelight reflected in the dark screen. "I thought you were training late tonight," she said, her voice trailing off as she noticed my expression, then the phone on the table. "Sit down," I said, my voice remarkably calm. "Albert, what is going on? Why do you have my phone?" Her voice pitched higher, defensive already. "Sit down." Each word deliberate, final. She sat, eyes darting between my face and her phone. "Jordan Hayes," I said simply. "Tell me everything right now. Who your fight guy? What are you talking about?" The denial was instant, practiced. I reached over and tapped her phone screen, bringing up the messages. "Do not insult me by lying. Not now." Her face transformed. First shock, then anger, finally crumbling into tears. "It just happened, Albert. I did not mean for it. 2 months is not just happening. Meeting my opponent is not an accident. Tell me everything, or I walk out that door right now and call a lawyer." For the next hour, between sobs and pleas, the truth emerged. How she felt neglected during my training camps. How exciting Jordan was. How attentive. How it started as innocent conversation but quickly evolved. How sorry she was. How it meant nothing. Nothing. I echoed, my voice hollow. "You told him our private conversations. You planned your future together. You betrayed me with the one man I am training to fight. That is not nothing, Amanda. That is everything." The argument continued late into the night, her justifications growing more desperate as my resolve hardened. She swung between begging forgiveness and blaming me for her actions. I remained cold, detached, watching her performance like I would study an opponent's fight tape. That night I slept in the guest room, though slept was generous. I stared at the ceiling until dawn broke my mind, cycling through 5 years of memories, wondering how many were lies. The next morning I called Mike as soon as the clock hit 7. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice rough from lack of sleep. "What is wrong? You sound like hell," he replied. "Amanda has been cheating on me with Jordan Hayes." The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, Mike spoke, his voice grave. "Come to my place now. Do not go to the gym today." I arrived at his small apartment above a used bookstore 30 minutes later. He took one look at me, and pulled out a bottle of whiskey despite the early hour. "We need to postpone the fight," he said, after I had relayed the whole story. "Your head is not in the game. This is too much." "No," I said, firmly ignoring the offered drink. "I am fighting him. 2 weeks from today. Albert, think about this. You are emotional. This is not just another fight now. Exactly why I have to do it. Would you back down?" Mike sighed, running a hand over his weathered face. "No, I would not. But I also know what rage does in the octagon. It makes you sloppy. It makes you vulnerable." That morning, I visited a divorce attorney recommended by one of my teammates. The lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Sarah, laid out my options clearly. Given the circumstances and our relatively short marriage, I could file quickly. No children complicated matters, and our finances were mostly separate. When I returned home, Amanda was waiting, eyes red and swollen. "I have been calling you all morning," she said, her voice small. "I am staying at Mike's for a while. I need space. Albert, please. We can work through this. It was a terrible mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill." I cut her off. "You made thousands of choices every day for months. I do not even know who you are anymore." The next few days passed in a blur. My training suffered as sleep evaded me. I would find myself stopping mid-drill mind, drifting to images I wanted to forget. The anger would surge, and I would push too hard, getting sloppy. My sparring partners noticed exchanging concerned glances when I took unnecessary risks or threw with bad intentions. 4 days after discovering the affair, my brother James drove up from Colorado Springs. Mike had called him concerned about my mental state. James found me at the gym mindlessly hitting a heavy bag, well after everyone else had left. "Your form is garbage," he said by way of greeting. "Mom would be ashamed of those elbows." Despite everything, I smiled slightly. Our mother had been a collegiate boxer before we were born, and had taught us both to throw a proper jab before we could ride bikes. "What are you doing here, James?" "Saving my little brother from himself, apparently." He grabbed focus mitts from a nearby shelf. "Show me what you have got." After 30 minutes of work, we sat on the mats, sweating and catching our breath. "You cannot fight him like this," James finally said. "You are telegraphing everything. Dropping your guard, overcommitting. He will knock you out inside a round." "I know," I admitted. "So, what is the plan?" "Because right now you are heading for a loss and possibly a career-ending injury." I shrugged, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. James grabbed my shoulder, forcing me to look at him. "Listen to me. This pain you are feeling, it is fuel. But right now, you are just letting it burn wild. You need to control it, direct it." "How am I supposed to do that?" "By remembering who the hell you are. You are Albert Daniels. You have overcome worse than a cheating wife and a cocky opponent. Remember when Dad died? You channeled that grief into winning states. This is no different." That night I packed more clothes and moved into Mike's basement apartment. Amanda stood in the doorway as I left, pleading, tears streaming down her face. I handed her my house key. "I will let you know when I am coming by next. I need space." I blocked her number that night along with her email and social media accounts. It was like amputating a limb, but necessary for survival. The next morning I arrived at the gym with a new focus. I asked Mike to pull every available tape on Jordan Hayes from his amateur days to his most recent interviews. If we are doing this, Mike said we do it right. No emotion in the cage. Cold, calculated, and vicious. For the next 10 days, I lived and breathed Jordan Hayes. I knew his patterns, his preferences, his tendencies. He was explosive in the first round, often overwhelming opponents with speed. By round 3, he would begin to fade slightly, his right hand dropping after combinations. He had never been past the 4th round. My training intensified, but became more focused. I stopped pushing for knockout power and concentrated on timing, on energy conservation, on exploiting the specific weaknesses we had identified. Mike brought in sparring partners who could emulate Jordan's style, quick, aggressive, with heavy reliance on combinations. Hour after hour I defended, countered, waited for the openings I knew would come. Between sessions I met with Dr. Torres, the sports psychologist the gym had on retainer. He taught me meditation techniques to compartmentalize my emotions, to save them for the moment they would serve me rather than letting them consume me randomly. Anger is like holding a hot coal, he said during one session. Useful when you need to start a fire, but destructive if you just hold on to it. The pre-fight press conference came a week before the bout. It was the first time I would face Jordan in person since discovering the affair. He swaggered into the hotel conference room with his entourage all branded gear and confidence. I sat quietly at the table mic, a solid presence beside me. Albert Daniels is a gatekeeper, nothing more, Jordan told the assembled media. Respect for his experience, but on Saturday I put him away inside 2 rounds. The old guard makes way for the new. When asked for my response, I simply smiled. Experience is not just about years. It is about understanding consequences. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. During the face-off, as we stood nose to nose for photographs, Jordan smirked. She screams louder for me than she ever did for you, he whispered, too low for microphones to catch. I did not react. Not a flinch, not a word. His smirk faltered, slightly uncertainty flashing in his eyes for the briefest moment. The media noticed the unusual tension, with several reporters asking if there was personal animosity between us. I maintained professionalism, while Jordan played it up, suggesting I was intimidated by his youth and speed. The tension escalated at the weigh-ins the day before the fight. Jordan came in half a pound over the limit on his first attempt, requiring him to cut additional weight in a hurry. When he returned an hour later, successfully making weight, his irritation was visible. During our final face-off, he shoved me slightly. Not enough to warrant a fine, but enough to break protocol. Security stepped between us, as Mike pulled me back. Save it for tomorrow, Mike muttered. Later in the hotel room, I felt strangely calm. The meditation techniques had created a space between my emotions and my actions. The pain was still there, the betrayal still raw, but I had harnessed it rather than being controlled by it. I called James, who had arrived in town to support me. I am good, I told him before he could ask. Tomorrow I finish this chapter. Fight day dawned clear and cool. I woke at 6, followed my usual routine, light stretching, a small balanced meal visualization exercises. By the time we arrived at the arena at 4 in the afternoon, I was in the zone, focused entirely on the task ahead. In the locker room, as Mike wrapped my hands, one of the production assistants appeared with a bouquet of roses. Delivery for Albert Daniels, she said. Mike intercepted them, checking the card, then handed them back. Take these away, please, he said firmly. I knew they were from Amanda without having to ask. The arena filled as undercard fights progressed. I could hear the crowd growing louder, more energetic, as the main event approached. In my mind, I walked through the game plan one final time. Weather the early storm, establish my jab, look for counters in round 2, take him into deep water in rounds 3 and 4. When it was time, I walked out to For Whom the Bell Tolls, the same song I had used since my first professional fight. The crowd's reaction was mixed. I was the veteran respected, but not the young star they were excited about. As I climbed the steps to the cage, I scanned the arena briefly. There, 6 rows back, was Amanda wearing the Mile High Fight Club shirt I had given her last Christmas. Our eyes met for a fleeting second, before I looked away, refocusing on the task ahead. Jordan's entrance was flashier. More current music, a larger entourage. He played to the crowd, exuding the confidence of youth and an undefeated record. The referee called us to center cage for instructions, and Jordan continued his psychological warfare, refusing to touch gloves, making a throat-slashing gesture as we returned to our corners. The bell rang, and everything else disappeared. Round 1 unfolded exactly as we had anticipated. Jordan came out aggressive, throwing heavy combinations, looking for an early finish. I stayed defensive, using footwork to avoid the worst of it, jabbing to maintain distance. He landed a few good shots, a right cross that snapped my head back, a leg kick that would leave a bruise, but nothing fight-altering. He is already breathing hard, Mike said between rounds. You are right on track. Round 2 saw Jordan growing frustrated with my defensive approach. He took more risks, overextending on his combinations. Late in the round, I caught him with a counter right hand that visibly stunned him, forcing him to clinch to recover. The crowd sensed the shift, the energy in the arena changing slightly. He is doubting himself now, Mike said as I sat on the stool. Round 3, we start taking him apart. Jordan came out more measured in the third, respecting my power now. We exchanged in the center of the cage, both landing significant strikes. Halfway through the round, I caught one of his kicks and took him down, controlling the rest of the round from top position, wearing him down with grinding pressure and short strikes. By round 4, the tide had fully turned. Jordan's movements had slowed, his responses becoming predictable. I began talking to him in the clinch. She told me everything I said as we grappled against the fence. Every detail about your little meetings. His eyes widened, slightly concentration breaking. I capitalized immediately, landing a sharp elbow that opened a cut over his right eye. The blood seemed to further unnerve him, his defense growing sloppier. You thought you would take everything from me, I continued during the next clinch. My title shot. My wife. But you miscalculated. The finishing sequence came with 47 seconds left in the 4th round. Jordan, desperate to turn the fight around, rushed in with a wild combination. I slipped the final punch, stepped to the side, and caught him with a perfectly timed counterhook that dropped him to one knee. As he tried to stand, I secured a rear naked choke, cinching it in tight as we fell to the mat. Jordan fought the choke for several seconds before tapping frantically. I held the submission for an extra moment. Not long enough for the referee to intervene, but long enough for Jordan to feel true panic. She was never yours to take, I whispered in his ear, before releasing the hold. The referee raised my hand as Jordan was attended to by his corner. The crowd roared, appreciating the technical comeback and dramatic finish. In my post-fight interview, I kept it professional. Jordan is a tough opponent with a bright future, I said, though the words tasted like ash. Tonight was about experience and perseverance. This victory is dedicated to truth and self-respect. As the interviewer tried to ask about the title implications, I spotted Amanda attempting to make her way to the cage. I quickly wrapped up, thanking my team and supporters before exiting through the opposite side, avoiding her completely. In the locker room, surrounded by my jubilant team, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of everything that had happened. Mike cleared the room, leaving just the two of us. You did it, kid, he said, voice gruff with emotion. One of the best performances I have ever seen. I nodded, unable to speak as the adrenaline crash hit me alongside emotional exhaustion. Tears came suddenly, unexpected and unstoppable. Mike sat beside me, hand on my shoulder, saying nothing, because nothing needed to be said. After the medical check and press obligations, James drove me back to Amanda and my house. It was time to complete the second part of this terrible chapter. Amanda was waiting in the living room when I arrived, still in her fight night clothes, eyes red from crying. Albert, please, she began as soon as I walked in. Your fight was amazing. I am so proud. Stop, I said, my voice tired but firm. I did not come to reconcile, but I love you. What happened with Jordan was a terrible mistake. Seeing you tonight reminded me of everything we have. Had I corrected everything we had? I placed a manila envelope on the coffee table between us. Divorce papers, already prepared. I am giving you 48 hours to pack your essentials and find somewhere else to stay. You can coordinate getting the rest of your things later. The color drained from her face. You cannot be serious. 3 years of marriage, and you are throwing it away, without even trying to work through this. I am not the one who threw it away, I replied calmly. You made that choice every day for months. With my opponent Amanda. Of all the men in Denver, you chose the one person guaranteed to cause maximum damage. It was not about hurting you. It just happened. People make mistakes. This was not a mistake. It was a campaign, and it failed. I picked up the duffel bag I had packed days earlier. I will be at James's place. Text me when you have moved out. Albert, please, she cried, grabbing my arm as I turned to leave. I will do anything. I will go to therapy. I will quit my job. Anything you want. I gently removed her hand. What I want is impossible now. What I need is to move forward without you. Her final desperate attempt came as I reached the door, falling to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Please do not leave me. I am begging you. I am on my knees begging you for another chance. I paused, feeling a complex mix of emotions, pity, lingering love, and finally resignation. Goodbye, Amanda. I hope you find whatever you were looking for. The following weeks were a blur of practical matters. Amanda moved in with her sister, and we communicated only through lawyers. News of our separation spread quickly through our social circles, with friends awkwardly choosing sides or trying to remain neutral. Jordan disappeared from social media after the loss, his momentum stalled by both the defeat and the emerging rumors about his role in my divorce. His coach reached out to Mike with a grudging apology, which I acknowledged but did not formally accept. I took 6 weeks off from training, the longest break in my adult life. The first 2 weeks were brutal, anger and grief taking turns keeping me awake at night. I started seeing a therapist specializing in betrayal trauma, which helped provide perspective, if not immediate relief. The greatest damage from betrayal is not the act itself. Dr. Wilson told me during one session, but how it changes your ability to trust. Your challenge now is not to let this define all your future relationships. James convinced me to join him on a road trip to Montana, a chance to clear my head in open spaces far from familiar reminders. We fished, hiked, and talked more openly than we had since childhood. The distance helped providing room for the wound to begin healing. When I returned to Denver, I started coaching the youth program at Mile High 3 evenings a week. Working with kids who were simply excited to learn brought unexpected joy back into my life. Their unfiltered enthusiasm and lack of agenda was precisely what I needed. Coach Albert, did you really choke out that mean guy who tried to steal your wife? One 10-year-old asked during a grappling class, causing the other kids to go silent. That is not why I won the fight, I replied carefully. I won because I trained harder, stayed focused, and never gave up. That is the only lesson that matters. My manager approached me about a potential title fight in 4 months. The champion had specifically requested me after my performance against Jordan. You have earned this shot, he said. Take a few days to think about it. I found myself increasingly comfortable with the boundaries I had established. Mutual friends who tried to pass messages from Amanda were gently but firmly told I was not interested. Those who respected my decision remained in my life. Those who pushed fell away naturally. 6 months after the fight, Amanda made one final attempt at reconciliation, showing up at the gym after evening classes. She looked different. Hair shorter, more natural makeup, a sadness in her eyes that had not been there before. Albert, can we talk? Just for a minute. We sat on a bench outside, the early evening air crisp with approaching autumn. I have been in therapy, she said, working on myself, understanding why I did what I did. I know we cannot go back to what we had, but I needed to tell you how truly sorry I am. Not just for the affair, but for how I tried to blame you afterward. I nodded, appreciating her words, but feeling detached from them, like hearing about characters in a story rather than my own life. I forgive you, I said, finally, and meant it. Not for your sake, but for mine. Carrying anger was exhausting. Does that mean there is any chance? No, I said gently. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. I wish you well, Amanda, truly, but our chapter is closed. As she left, tears streaming silently down her face, I felt the last weight lift from my shoulders. The divorce had been finalized a month earlier, the house sold, possessions divided. Now the emotional ties were finally severed as well. My comeback fight was scheduled for the following month. Not a title bout yet, but a main event against a top 5 opponent. My training had evolved, incorporating new techniques and a more balanced approach to preparation. Mike noticed the change immediately. You are fighting smarter now, he observed during a sparring session. Before you were always trying to prove something, now you are just being excellent. The wisdom I gained through this painful journey changed me in ways I never could have anticipated. I learned that strength is not just about enduring pain, but about choosing how to respond to it. That self-respect must come before love for another. That forgiveness does not require reunion. I discovered that the greatest victory is not defeating an opponent, but reclaiming yourself from the ashes of betrayal. The path forward is not about finding someone to replace what was lost, but about becoming so complete within yourself that nothing external can shatter your foundation again. Have you ever had to rebuild yourself after betrayal? What helped you move forward? Share your story in the comments below. If this video resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Life will knock us all down sometimes, but together, we can learn to stand stronger than before. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your worth is never determined by someone else's actions.